Hey bestie, it's your favorite homegirl KAYANARICH, and welcome to the YouTube channel where we heal, we grow, we glow, and we become the best versions of ourselves. If you are new here, my name is Kayana and I'm about to be your new favorite homegirl. If you are returning, hey bestie, I'm super excited to be able to do part 3 with y'all in regards to the foundations of self-love. Now, if you haven't checked out part 1 and 2, make sure that you go ahead and check those out before we get into this. This is going to be a little bit more so looking at some of the blocks that are common when it comes to self-love, and we are going to talk about, you know, just kind of reminding you about who you are and some coping and unhealthy coping mechanisms, and then we are also going to talk about some boundaries. So we are going to talk about a little bit of everything in this part 3, the final part. If anything that we talk about here you are interested in knowing more about, please feel free to reach out to me, DM me, ask me about the self-love mentorship program, or you can sign up for the wait list. But let's get into it. Without further ado, let's talk about common self-love blockers, because I think that this is really important to talk about. So self-love often feels hard, not because we're incapable of it, but because something is standing in the way, right? And before we cultivate deeper love, we need to look at the subtle, often inherited or conditioned patterns that interfere with our ability to feel worthy, to rest, to receive, and to be seen. It's not about blame. It's about awareness. It's about calling these patterns by name so they no longer take control of you in the dark, right? It's about shining light on these patterns so that you can take control over the control that they have over your life. So some examples of blockers would be, for example, negative self-talk. Now, I'm a firm believer that words are spells. I'm a firm believer that if the voice in your head is speaking to you with cruelty, your spirit is shrinking, right? This is the longest relationship that I will ever have. The relationship that I have with myself is the longest one. So if I am constantly going through negative self-talk, I'm pretty much living in hell within my body. And that's a fact. My spirit is never going to feel safe in the home that it has, and in turn I'm never going to feel safe with the outer world, right? I'm never going to feel safe because I'm not feeling safe in my inner world. So how can I show up safely in my outer world? And so there's that. There's also dealing with perfectionism, which is that belief that you must be flawless to be worthy of love, which in turn keeps you in this loop of chasing validation instead of peace. And I think for a lot of people pleasers, you know, people pleasing is next, but a lot of people pleasers feel like they need to be perfect people for the people in their life, and in turn that's what makes them a people pleaser, right? You abandon yourself to be liked or avoid conflict. You say yes to everyone but what feels good to you and your soul. Now, I am a recovering people pleaser, okay? I used to feel like my worth was tied to how well I showed up for the people that I love. I used to feel that I was worthy of whatever kind of love based on how I showed up for people in my life. I felt like my value or my belief or the things that I needed didn't matter because I was brought on earth to serve and be purposeful to everyone else. And that's bull. Okay, so there's that. But that also does tie in with the next one, which is unhealed childhood wounds, right? If you were taught that love is conditional, your adult self might still believe that. For a lot of Caribbean, or I want to even just say like immigrant. Yeah, I want to say like a lot of immigrant children, we were raised to believe that we needed to be perfect. Black women, we needed to be perfect. We needed to work extra hard. We needed to show up extra. We always needed to overcompensate in some capacity, right? And so growing up, it was like, well, I needed to make sure that I was exceptionally well because I needed my parents to be proud of me, right? That's kind of the narrative that we have with immigrant parents, is we need to be exceptionally well in order to have their love or in order to have their approval. And so that unfortunately teaches us that love is conditional, because we always need to meet the standards of the people that we love in order to be worthy of their love. And so that is something that we really need to acknowledge, right? Is that if you were taught that love is conditional, then when you go into your friendships, you go into your relationships, you go into your business partnerships, you often feel like you need to overcompensate in order to be worthy of that kind of love. And then there's that comparison. So looking outward to define your worth creates disconnection from your inner guidance. So I always say, if you are on social media or of some sort and it's making you compare yourself to other people, then it's time to unfollow them, because you are losing your own magic and your own sauce because you're trying to compare it to someone completely different that doesn't have what you have, that wasn't given what you were given, that's not built the way that you were built, right? And then we have that shame, and that shame kind of whispers that something's wrong with you when really you've just internalized rejection or internalized other blocks, right? You just internalized other things. So I think that when we look at shame and we look at that, we look at comparison, we look at the unhealed childhood wounds, we look at the people pleasing, we look at the perfectionism, we look at the negative self-talk. Like there are so many things that could be blocking you from really getting to the root of your self-love, that's really blocking you from getting to loving on yourself the way that you should. So I want you to ask yourself the questions: which of these blockers do you see showing up in your life? And how do they protect you? What are they protecting you from? And how are they keeping you from the love that you deserve to feel from yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, this world profits on our self-doubt. So remembering who you are is your superpower. Being able to know what your top 3 qualities are, being able to, ask yourself, what do people always thank me for? Because those are amazing qualities that you hold. Those are going to be things that are important. And a lot of times we obviously develop coping skills to survive. And the coping skills that we develop to survive, some were taught while some were inherited. And so we pick these up during our moments of trauma, but not every coping mechanism serves your healing. And the goal is obviously never perfection, but it is being aware, having compassion for yourself, and honestly being intentional with your redirection. So some examples of common unhealthy coping mechanisms is like that avoidance or procrastination. It's the emotional numbing. So whether you're overworking, you're scrolling, you're emotionally eating, you're suppressing your emotions. It's that self-sabotage when things start to feel really good. It's that anger directed inward. So that self-blame, that guilt, those are things that we can use to cope. When we, feel like, okay, I got to cope with all the things that are happening, so let me do this because this is what I've internalized. Some healthy ways to cope is journaling what you feel without judgment, or talking to a safe person or a therapist, grounding or moving your body gently. I love becoming one with Mama Ocean or Mama Earth, whichever one, because that really allows me to ground myself again. Crying as a form of sacred release. Listen, I'm a crybaby. One thing I'm gonna do is cry. You do not have to worry about me. You do not have to worry about me. I'm going to sacredly release all the emotions, and I might have to do it more than once. But once I have that really good cry, you ever have a really good cry and it's almost like it was spiritual? Like you feel like a completely different person after that cry. Like that cry did something to you and did something for you that you just can't explain it. That's what I mean. And then taking spiritual baths or spending time in nature. So I want you to ask yourself, what is your most familiar coping mechanism, and does it still serve the version of you that you're becoming, or do we need to find some new coping mechanisms? Okay, self-discovery isn't about a new identity. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who you needed to be. It's before the heartbreak. It's before the conditioning. It's before the disappointment. And this part of your journey is a gentle excavation. It's unearthing the truths that live beneath the roles, the masks, the expectations that you've had to wear for years. And I always say this, to know yourself is to meet the God in you. To know yourself is to meet the God in you. Because everything about you is carefully curated by God. And so I want you to start asking yourself those questions. What did I love doing as a child before anyone told me that it wasn't realistic? What are the patterns in my life trying to teach me? What do I daydream about when nobody is around? When do I feel the most like myself, just free, grounded, and playful? And honor those emotions and allow that to be something that you are consistent with including in your life, okay? Boundaries are sacred. And one of the deepest acts of self-love is the ability to say, this doesn't feel good to me. This doesn't feel good for me. Boundaries are not punishment. They are portals. They protect your peace. They preserve your energy, and they help you remain in alignment with your truth. As a spiritual woman, as an empath or a healer, or as a spiritual being, your boundaries are the very thing that will keep you from burning out while serving others, right? So there are different types of boundaries. And this is going to be kind of like the last topic that we talk about, but there are different types of boundaries. And so when we talk about boundaries, we want to talk about the emotional boundary first. And that is that you don't have to take on the emotional weight of others. Now, I am known for the people that I love. I'm carrying the emotional weight of whatever it is that they're going through, because I want to be of support to them, and I want them to know that I am of support. And so a lot of times, you know, I'm carrying the stress that they carry. But with the job that I have, with the career and the path and the gift that I've been given, I've had to learn how to have really good emotional boundaries. I've had to learn that while I can still curate a space for people to move through their emotional baggage, I have to be able to create boundaries that don't allow me to carry the emotional weight of what they are dealing with. And then I look at time boundaries. Rest is not a reward. You don't owe constant availability. And that's something that I've had to learn, is that whether it be family, friends, associates, I don't need to be available whenever they need me. For my work, I need to be available within the hours that I've allocated to work. For my family and friends, if I'm exhausted, if I don't have the mental capacity, then I am allowed to express that I don't have the mental capacity right now, and I'm allowed to create that boundary. I'm allowed to say that I'm just trying to rest, and so I don't have it in me to do all of the things that you're asking. When I talk about energetic boundaries, not every conversation or connection deserves your full presence. And what I mean by that is that I used to have connections with people, and I would consistently show up for them. I would always show up for them. I would always be there to, you know, carry the weight of all the confusion that they're feeling. But I started to realize that not every conversation required me to put on my spiritual advisor hat. Sometimes I could just be your friend that's just listening. Not every conversation required me to, you know, spiritually give my gifts away or spiritually tap in to tell you intuitively what I think. Sometimes I'm just allowed to be a girl. Sometimes I just want to be a girl. Like, it's not every time. And I know that that's like crazy to say, but sometimes I just want to be your girl. Like, I want to be Delulu with you, mama. I don't want to have to pull out the cards deck. I don't want to have to be talking to you and be like, yeah, so I don't want to do that. Like, sometimes I want to be able to energetically be present, but not have to be energetically present 100%, and that's okay too. And then I have the digital boundaries. Now, I always say nobody is going to run me off of this device, that device, any device. You are not going to run me off of a device, okay? So I don't care what it is. I always tell people I'm quick to block. I am quick to mute. I am quick to delete. I am quick to log off. I'm quick to do whatever. You're not about to come over here and disturb my peace on my phone, on my social media. You're tripping, okay? So the digital boundaries are important as well. Knowing when it's time to unfollow somebody, knowing when it's time to block somebody, knowing when it's time to log off because it's taking up too much of your time and too much of your energy. Knowing when to create those digital boundaries are very, 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 very important. So I want to ask you, where in your life does it feel the most drained? And who or what is constantly crossing your inner knowing? And what is one boundary that you can implement to come back into alignment? Okay, so for this week, I just want you to remember that self-love is not something we talk about once and we forget. It's a lifestyle. It's a series of decisions. It's a quiet return to yourself in the small moments. So I just want to encourage you to prioritize yourself, to do one thing this week that is for you. Maybe write a letter to yourself. Maybe write a letter to yourself as someone who loves you deeply from their eyes. Spend 10 minutes in stillness and just kind of say this affirmation of, I am not behind. I am not broken. I am coming home. I challenge you to do that integration for this week. Once again, I want to thank you so much for doing this with me, spending this time with me, and really allowing me to be a part of your self-love journey. I hope that you enjoyed this 3-part series. I hope that it gave you everything that you need, and make sure to click the subscribe button below, and let's have a talk. Tell me what is one healthy coping mechanism that you're going to lean into this week when things are feeling overwhelming. With so much love, your favorite homegirl. See y'all next week. Bye.